Forming ionic binary compounds. What we're going to do in this worksheet is the exact opposite of what we did in the last one. Before, we were given the chemical formulas of the compound, and we had to write the names. Now we're given the names and we have to write the chemical formula. And it shows us how to do this in the reading material right here. So it says, forming ionic binary compounds. Look up the charge, the oxidation number, of each element in the compound. Then write the two element symbols with their charges as superscripts. Superscripts mean up above. If the two numbers add to 0, then you just write the two elements together to make the compound. But if they don't add to 0, you're going to use the crisscross method, and I'll show you that right here. The first example works like step 3. I find calcium on my periodic table. Here's calcium. It's in group 2, so I know it has a +2 charge. So calcium +2. Sulfide would be sulfur, because "ide" just means it's the ending when it's in a compound. So I'm going to change sulfide back to sulfur. I find sulfur here in group 16, so I know it needs 2 electrons, so it has a -2 oxidation number. So S is -2. Now because +2 and -2 already add to 0, they already cancel each other out, then that is the compound for calcium sulfide. Just Ca and S, just stick them together. Now if the charges don't add up to 0, we're going to use what's called the crisscross method. For example, magnesium is in group 2, so it has a +2 charge. Phosphorus is in group 15, so it has a -3 charge. +2 and -3 do not add up to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those two numbers, the 2 and the 3, ignore the plus and the minus, take the 2 and the 3 and cross them over. So the 3 becomes the subscript for Mg, and the 2 becomes the subscript for P, for phosphorus. So I've crossed these numbers over. They were up top, now they're down at the bottom as subscripts, and I end up with Mg3P2. Now why does this work? If I have 3 Mgs, I have 3 positive 2s. 3 times +2 is +6. So now I have +6 charge right here. If I have 2 Ps, I have 2 -3 charges. 2 times -3 is -6. So I had 3 times 2 was +6, 2 times -3 was -6, +6 and -6 now adds up to 0. All of our compounds have to have an overall charge of 0. So that's how you do it if they already add up to 0, and here's what you do if they don't. Do that crisscross method. So let's look at our first example here, aluminum iodide. Now what I recommend you guys do when you do these is actually to write out your symbols and their charges up here. So I look up aluminum. Here's aluminum in group 13. So it's Al with a +3 charge. Al +3 charge. Iodide would be iodine. So I look up iodine. It is in group 17. Its symbol is I. It is I with a -1 charge because it still needs 1 to make 8. -1. Do those add up to 0? No. So I'm going to have to take those numbers and do the crisscross method. Take the 3, the 1, cross them over. So I'll end up with Al. Now, it looks like I should write a 1 here because I'm bringing this 1 down as the subscript for aluminum. However, in science we don't write a subscript of 1. If there's no subscript, it's already understood that there's 1 of that element in the compound. So I'm not going to write the 1, even though it's understood to be there, but I then write the I, which got the 3 from the charge of aluminum, Ali3. So remember, Al had a charge of 3, I had a charge of -1, but now I have 3 of them, so I have a charge of -3 to cancel out the +3 from aluminum. So cross them over. Don't write the number 1. Cross them over. Other than the number 1, you write it. Okay, cross them over, write your new subscripts, and you're done. If they already added up to 0, had this been +3 and -3, I would have just written Ali. So that's how you're going to do those top ones. The bottom ones are actually a little bit easier Because remember, when we work with transition metals, we have to put the number in parentheses for the charge of that metal. So what's nice about this is you don't have to go to the periodic table to look up the charge of iron. It's already given to you. So iron, I look at the periodic table to find its symbol, and it's Fe, and I know from this that its charge is +2. So I don't have to go looking for it on the periodic table, it's already given to me. This is only the charge of the first element. We still have to look up the charge of the second element. Oxide would be oxygen. So I go back to my periodic table, I find oxygen, it's in group 16, so 6 needs 2, so -2 charge. So it's O with a -2 charge. Now look at that. They already add up to 0. So all I have to do is write FeO. If they had not added up to 0, I would have crossed those over to make the subscripts for those elements, just like we did up here at the top with ALI3. So try these on your own. If you still have questions, make sure you come ask.